So in my last video, I talked about inspiration as being a concept that's made up of two pieces. One being hope or faith, or really just trust that you have what it takes to get to the end of a project, or just that it can be done at all. Not necessarily that even you are the one who can do it, although hopefully that's the case. Plus life force, which is again that kind of that feeling of aliveness and excitement that comes, and I think everybody knows what that feels like, right? That's like when you see something that inspires you, when you see something um, that there's just like a kind of a quickening that happens through your whole body. Like you're like, yes, this is really cool. So that life force plus this is something I can actually make happen. That's what equals inspiration, or that's what I'm claiming here. So to follow up to that, I wanted to talk a little bit about like, okay, so what do you do with that? If you want to live an inspired life, if you want to cultivate inspiration in your life, which if you are an artist, if you're a writer, I'm saying you have to be able to do that if you want to sustain creativity over the long run. So how do you do that? The two pieces in this case that you have to kind of cultivate are that life force and that trust or hope. So I'm going to focus on that one for today, hope. And what this really comes down to is just your belief in yourself that it is possible to do something. And I think this is exactly why the daily writing habit that so many writers talk about is so important. That you just show up and you sit down and you write like it's a job, whether or not you feel like it that day. That's sort of what I was saying in the last video. Um, that's that's advice that gets thrown around all the time, and I do think that that's really important. But this is the reason why. Not that you write like an automaton all the time because that's how writing gets done, but because it's that practice of just sitting down and writing, whether you feel like it or not, that instills in you the belief that you have what it takes to just sit down and get it done. It instills in you the belief that you will actually show up each and every day. And so that's what allows inspiration to grow. In terms of how that happens, I think that's basically it. You sit down and write every single day. I do think that there are other ways to do this. I think that's probably the most common writing advice I've ever heard is just sit down and write every single day. But then there are also many successful writers who don't actually do that. There are successful writers who actually prefer to go long stretches without writing at all and then write in really intensive bursts. That sounds really stressful to me. I think that's probably less common for the human brain to kind of be able to do that successfully. But pretty much there's this concept of like building up the reserves of trust in yourself, that say like the more you complete things, the more you show up for yourself in whatever format you kind of create, the more you trust that you will be able to continue doing that into the future. So I guess it's more of that. It's like whether it's an everyday kind of thing, whether it's an every once in a while kind of thing, being able to say, okay, I'm committing to this pattern or I'm committing to this project and I'm showing up. The more you've done that in the past, the more it'll be easy to do in the future. And to quote Benjamin Hardy, who talks about this sort of thing all the time, he actually talked about hope as being a combination of agency, strategy, and vision, which is to say you can see that the vision is that you can see the end result, you can see what it is that you're trying to create. Your strategy is that you have a plan to get there, which in the case of writing might be like an outline, it might be just knowing that you're going to sit down and write every day, it might be something else, but like kind of having a plan for how to get to that ultimate vision. And then agency is exactly that feeling of I am able to do this. And that's something you build over time by not letting yourself down. Now, I personally feel like I'm in a challenging position with this because I very much believe that you build that kind of personal capital over time by consistently showing up, by setting those routines, by occasionally finishing projects. That's how you start to train yourself that even when it's difficult, you can actually make it through to the end of something. But I've been feeling like I have the opposite problem recently because I have let myself down so many times in the past already that it's really, really hard to trust myself again. And so I know that I can get back into a rhythm of writing every single day. I've gone through many periods in my life where I've actually sat down and written every single day. And those have been great. And often I've written great things, often I've written terrible things. That's just sort of how the process goes. But I know that in each of those cases, no matter how much I was showing up every single day, I was not necessarily making progress. And so I this is a question I have for myself. This is not something I have an answer to. I do think that in most cases you can develop that trust in yourself by just showing up in small ways and then slightly bigger ways and then bigger ways. But I have broken my trust in myself so many times that I can see the gimmick from too far away. And even just telling myself, it's okay, I know that tomorrow morning if I wake up and just do 10 minutes of writing, that'll still be my goal. I it's I can see through it, and I know that it might not actually see me all the way through. So I have lost faith in the structure itself to be the thing that gives me hope that I can see through to the other side. Now I do think that that's still a very important piece of inspiration, and I'm very curious to see what it's going to take to rebuild that in myself. My temptation is to just always go back to this, okay, start writing every day again in a very kind of consistent, deliberate way. But as I'm even talking now, I'm thinking it's maybe less about setting up that routine again and more about what is it that is going to allow me to trust my process again? What is it that's going to allow me to believe that I actually have what it takes to see a project through, knowing that I've let myself down so many times in the past? So I'm not sure yet. I'll let you know, but I think I'm going to have to be a little creative with it. This is sort of the reality of the creative process, right? Sometimes you understand why something is happening and you understand kind of how it works, and you still don't necessarily have the solution ready to go. So that's where I'm at right now. In fact, I would say that little piece right there sums up this entire video series. There are so many ways in which I'm very, very clear on the reason why something's happened. I'm very clear on kind of what the goal should be and what I'm trying to achieve, and I just haven't yet figured out how I'm going to do it for myself. So that's my personal challenge for today, is figuring out how I can learn to trust someone who's let me down in the past, which is myself. And maybe I should find out how people learn to trust other people who betrayed them in the past. Maybe that's an okay place to start. And yeah, it's kind of a depressing ending, but that's where we are. Tomorrow, we'll get into cultivating that other side of inspiration, which is the life force, the juice, the energy, the zing, which I actually think is also key to what I'm talking about today, but we'll tackle that tomorrow. All right, thanks for watching.